Hello, we're with the International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch, and we're going to be joined by John here shortly from RTI. Really excited to share his story with you all. If you have questions, please drop us a line tonight as we're talking on the chat. Also, you can email us at the branch, International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch, and we can be happy to answer your questions there as well. Hey, Danielle. Jane. Hey,
Hi, Jared.
how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. Thanks so much for making some time tonight.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about RTI and your role there.
Yeah. Oregon RTI is a project that's been around for, oh God, since 2005, 2006. So about 16 years now. Um, and we are basically the statewide support for Oregon for building response intervention or multi-tiered systems to support early reading instruction. So we support districts. They apply to be part of the project, and we provide some coaching, technical assistance, but really, we create a network of schools around or school districts, I should say, around the state that really are focused on improving early literacy instruction for all kids. So we help them from everything from building early screening systems to data meetings and how you look at data to drive instruction. To really, our main focus is building really good, solid core instructional systems so that every kid is getting really good reading support. So we've been around again for about 16 years, and over that course of that 16 years, we have supported a little over 100 school districts across the state of Oregon. So I think there's 196 school districts, and we've had the opportunity to work with about a little over 100 of those. So yeah, it's exciting seeing what's going on all over across Oregon.
It's so important. We talk about the importance of literacy through the International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch. Decoding dyslexia has just been, in Books Not Bars, just a big thing on literacy being a civil right. So the work you're doing is so important. So thank you for that. I wanted to ask how do you get started in something like this? Like, how did you, where does it, like your origin story come from?
Yeah, so I actually, back in college, I studied psychology without really kind of an idea, probably like a lot of college kids, of what I wanted to do with that. It was just interesting, and I wanted to learn a lot more about that. And so through that work, I had the opportunity my senior year to do an internship course, and through that, I was placed in a kindergarten classroom. And so it was a kindergarten classroom in it was actually a medical research facility that at the time was one of the top facilities in the country, actually, for treating respiratory illnesses. So all the students that went to this school was in the hospital or in this research facility, and they all had respiratory illnesses of some kind, and not severe enough to where they needed, like, hospitalization or critical care, but enough to where they need to be monitored throughout the day. So, and most of the students had asthma or other kind of moderate respiratory illnesses. But as part of that, I worked in the kindergarten classroom, and those students, a lot of them had also concurrent, learning disabilities, ADHD, a lot of different disabilities that went along with their respiratory issues. And I loved working in that classroom, just seeing all the diverse learners that we had and how we could support those kids. And so after that, I decided I wanted to go into education. And so I kind of had my sights set on, doing master's work in special education or school psychology. Actually had the opportunity after graduating, took a couple of years off and worked in a cognitive research lab, actually looking at a twin study. So with kids, so we had twins come in, and we looked at specifically like the genetics and the behavioral genetics of reading comprehension. So, how was reading comprehension linked to, genetic markers? So that was super interesting, and just, loved that even more, and really kind of sparked my joy of learning more about reading and the reading process. So did that for a couple of years, and then had the opportunity to come back to Oregon. I grew up in Oregon, so had the opportunity to come back here and go to the University of Oregon, get my master's in special education, then my doctorate in school psychology, and just loved all the work, and appreciate all the people that I got to touch base with. Oregon has a fantastic special education program, just a lot of really top name researchers. So yeah, and so from there I worked a couple years in Iowa for their special education system as a school psychologist, and then got a chance to move back to Oregon, and took this position with the Oregon Response to Instruction Intervention Project, and it's been about, I think this is my 12th year, so 12 years back in Oregon now.
That's amazing. What a full circle journey there. And then
Yeah.
all the experiences to like really get a foundation of education and what is sounds like what is needed. I was gonna ask, like, as you're working with students, is there one story that like pulled at you, or was it just kind of that the whole culture of being around students and seeing kind of the challenges that they might have with dyslexia or ADHD?
Yeah, had an opportunity to work with a lot of students. I mean, to be honest, some of the kids that I love the most, and some of the work that I miss the most, are some of the kids with the most severe, actually, behavioral issues. Because as we look at it, and my background's in academics and reading, but also have a background as a school psychologist and behavior supports. But we look at behavior is really a form of communication from kids, and kids that really have significant behavioral issues. A lot of it is related to the lack of the ability to read or ability to do the work. And so we look at these kids and think they're acting out and think they're bad kids, but they're not. They're just communicating the fact that this is hard and we need to support them. So I remember a couple of first grade kids that I work with that were smart kids, but they had reading disabilities, and had a hard time reading, and so that manifested in a lot of behavioral issues that luckily we were able to put together some good interventions and support them to make some really good progress. But it's one of the reasons I like working with kids rather than adults. Not that I don't love the adults that I work with, but it's kids are so malleable, and so the ability to change a kid's life, and put them on track for success years later is huge, and you have that opportunity if you do that early. So
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like it seems like from my experience and just working with some students, it's really the root cause, like literacy can be a root cause of those behavior issues or anxiety and stress. Is that what you're finding in your programs? Is that it really does come down to that being a key factor?
yeah, I mean, they're so interrelated, and it comes down to, is it the chicken or the egg? Is it the behavior or the academic difficulties? And what we find is that it really is both. And the longer we wait to intervene, and the longer we wait to support kids that have academic issues, the behavioral issues get worse. They get more challenging, and to be honest, I can't blame the kids. I mean, it's all behavior is a form of communication. They're just trying to communicate that this is hard. I need help, and that's the best way that they know to do it. So we as a project are really focused on that reading piece. But through, especially the last several years, we've kind of tried to collaborate more with other organizations, Northwest PBIS, other, behavior support organizations, to really kind of look at how do we support, kids in a more holistic way. Because obviously getting to read is, one piece, but it's not necessarily the only piece. So
Sure.
we want to make sure that we're addressing everything that students need.
What are you finding in the education system, or what would you like to see from a long-term approach?
Yeah, I mean, what we're trying to do is create, consistency in schools, and make it systemic. And so I always remember back, in graduate school, I had the opportunity to do some coursework with Rob Horner, who was one of the founders of Positive Behavior Intervention Supports, and he always said, solve big problems, not little ones. And that always resonated in my head. And not to say that any student's individual problems are little problems. Every issue is a big issue to every student. But, we're really trying to build consistent systems where, all kids get a really solid education. We like to say that kids shouldn't have to win the educational lottery to get a good education. It shouldn't matter what your zip code is, shouldn't matter what your school you go to, shouldn't even matter what teacher you get in the school. Sometimes there's variability within schools about what education you're going to get. If you go to one third grade class, you get this. If you go to another third grade class, you get something different. And so we want to make sure that that there's consistency and there's systems in place that really support kids no matter what they need.
It's interesting because I come from a really fortunate background. I was really privileged. I had two parents that could afford to get me testing and provide me tutors and access that, you know, were really game changers. And we didn't even know what we were really doing. The joke in our family is that we put a plan together with duct tape and rubber bands, but I always thought like I knew how hard it was with that support and with those resources. I couldn't imagine like what it was like for students that didn't have access to that. And that's where like my passion is for being involved, because if we can provide everyone access and we can teach everyone to read and give everyone these tools, it eliminates so many problems down the road that you're talking about. Those behavior problems lead to like bigger issues down the road, whether that be poverty or prison or health or like social emotional well-being. And so the work that you're doing is just awesome. Like that's what's needed.
Yeah, and I mean, the way that I look at it is, every kid that's not successful is it's just that growth mindset that they're not successful yet. There's a solution to support every kid out there. And so we're really just looking for what that solution is. Fully knowing that some of those it's challenging. Some kids need a lot. And so how do we problem solve our systems to really make that work? Because every kid that we don't teach to read, or every kid that's not successful, is an opportunity lost, for society as a whole. I mean, you lose a chance to have a brilliant scientist or a brilliant painter or whatever. Like, I want every kid to reach their potential, whatever they decide that is with their family. They should have, full options to do whatever they want to do. But to do that, we have to give them a foundation of really solid, reading instruction to make them readers by third grade.
Yeah, it's interesting parallel, right? Like we have these, that we always talk about how dyslexia doesn't define intelligence, right? Like you can be dyslexic and still be really intelligent. Like the two don't go hand in hand. But if you're really intelligent and you're sitting in a classroom all day and you can't really participate, the level of frustration and anger, like that's always going to like increase. Like there's no doubt about it. The kids are too intelligent, but we miss on these. A lot of these students get bypassed because they don't have the proper tools at the beginning of the flow.
Yeah, well, and that's why we got to start early. I mean, we think about, we've all got a piece in making sure kids are successful, and it seems like, as a kindergarten teacher or first grade teacher, it's like, well, I only have them for a year. It's like, well, that's a really important year, and we got to make sure that we're all kind of on the same page and pointed in the same direction to really make that happen. Because it's, every opportunity that you have a kid, every day that you have a kid that you don't, make progress, that's an opportunity lost. And it's one that you can't get back. I mean, the kids only get so many opportunities because, I mean, we think about like just what's happened over the last year, with COVID and distance learning. We talk about this idea of learning loss. Kids have had learning loss. Like kids don't really lose learning. You don't learn something, then you lose it. It's, if you lost it, you never had it in the first place. You never learned it. What kids have really lost over the last year is instructional opportunities. They lost the opportunity to practice and learn new skills. And so moving forward, how do we accelerate that and make up for those lost opportunities and make sure that, we take advantage of every minute. And so it's really thinking about across our classrooms. We see a lot of places where we say, oh, this teacher's doing a good job, or I had a really good day, teaching these students. And that's fantastic. But the question is that happening every day in every classroom for every kid? And that's where the really excellent schools excel. It's not that they're doing anything magically different than other schools. The difference is they're doing it every day in every classroom for every kid. And that's hard. I mean, you got to sustain that work to make it happen, but it's not the secret magic bullet that, they only have. It's hard work.
Totally. And I think there's something to it with like, when you look at like science-based reading programs, like it's a similar thing to the consistency, because then when there is a falter, or like, then there's something to go back to. You've built this foundation, and through consistent work, or whether it's science-based reading programs, foundations get built. And that's the, like, I think that's the key you're hitting on too, is it's like, it gives you that platform to like falter and then jump back off of. And that is important for development, whether it's reading or playing a sport or art or music. I mean, it makes sense. How can people support the work you're doing? Like, what would that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is, you talked about like Books Not Bars and decoding dyslexia. Like we're big fans of the work that they've been doing, especially recently. Just the lobbying work, the advocating for teachers to get really good reading instruction. You know, I feel like, and we feel like, teachers, honestly, they get a bad rap a lot. Teachers are doing the best that they can with what they have. But, unfortunately, a lot of teachers just aren't prepared with the knowledge to teach reading really effectively. So I think the more that we can kind of, partner and combine forces, and that's what we're trying to do at Oregon RTI, is really reach out, because as, especially the last several years, we've learned there's a lot of people in Oregon that are on the same mission to make it happen. And so really, what's the phrase I remember? I think Joe Robinson used: gentle pressure, relentlessly applied. It's just like, we're going to give the same message over and over and over and over again. Message isn't going to change. Like, we want all kids reading, and we want good reading instructional programs that are based on scientifically based research, something that has a high likelihood of working. Not to say there's a magic bullet that's going to work for everyone, but we want the odds in our favor. We want something that's going to work. So I think we're just trying to really reach out to as many partners as we can, and really deliver that consistent message that this is what we want, and really help parents and families understand, what's possible and what we could do, and how to support schools and be a partner with schools, rather than, to be adversarial and fight over, what we're going to do. The more we can partner, I think the more we're going to, see better results for our kids.
Totally agree. I think the collaboration is huge, and it seems like the time is now for all this to come together finally. Like, I remember not much had changed in the education system from 30 years ago when I came back to Oregon, and so to be involved with these groups and see the messaging be consistent, that's a real win. What's your message to the world? Like, what would your message to the world be? I always like to let the guests have the last word, and I'd be curious to know, like, what is it that you would say?
I just think, fundamentally, we really do believe that every kid can be successful. I know we say that a lot and you hear that a lot, but we really do believe that that is possible. It's really about finding what works for kids. And so, again, a kid who's not successful is just a kid for whom we haven't found a successful plan for yet. And so we want to kind of come with that mindset. We talk a lot about problem solving. We have problem solving teams that try and solve problems, and we're not trying to solve, like, kids aren't problems. Like, our systems are problems. That's the problem that we're trying to solve. But to be able to do that in a really effective way, the one thing that you have to have more than anything else is you have to have a belief that the problem can be solved. If we come to the table knowing, well, this kid's never going to read, or this kid's never going to be able to do that, that's just not going to get it done, no matter how hard you try. And I mean, I've worked with enough kids over my career where I've been, very surprised at what kids can do sometimes. So when we give them the supports that they need. So, that's kind of just our message, and my message is that, believe it can be done. It's just because we haven't done it yet doesn't mean it's not possible. It just means that we really haven't, realized the potential that we can have in our education system when we kind of align everyone together. Because this isn't just like my work or your work or anyone else's. This has to be all of us. And that's why it's hard. If I could just do it on my own, like, I could just put my head down and do it, but we got to get people working together to be able to do that. So
I like it. The collaboration, but the message that everyone has the potential to be successful if we build the right plan around it and the right system.
absolutely.
Uh, One question from the chat is, how do teachers get in touch with you or your organization to get your help and to get going to be part of this collection?
Yeah, so you can, I'd say reach out, go to our website, www.oregonrti.org. We share all of our resources. Everything we have is free, because part of it, I mean, we create a lot of stuff, but it's not like we're creating out of thin air. We get stuff from other people. We don't have all the answers, but we try and share a lot of stuff. So everything there is available. Our contact info is on there as well. We are a project where districts apply to be a part of our project. So we're working with districts right now currently in our cadre, but we're always happy to, consult or have a phone call or talk with any other districts about, the work that they're doing or any questions they have. So this is the stuff we love to talk about. So, we're happy to talk about it and problem solve with as many people as possible. And as much as, people contact us and we can help them out, I learned so much from the people that reach out to us about other systems, not only in Oregon, but around the country. So we're always happy to hear what other folks are doing because again, we didn't invent solutions. We're just kind of, problem solving with other people and sharing what works.
It's amazing. It's amazing work you're doing. John, you have a tremendous story. I love that it came full circle and that you're back here working in the Oregon community because it's so needed right now. And appreciate all you're doing. We'll definitely share out your the website and appreciate you taking the time on a Monday night to talk with us.
Yeah, it was great. Always great to talk about it. So
Awesome. We'll have you back for sure.
sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jared.